Look at that. It's technology.
That's going in the show.
Breaking news, a school shooting with reports of multiple fatalities.
He had ran up to me and yelled at me to give me my purse.
A warning for online shoppers tonight. A new scam that could steal your personal information in just a matter of seconds.
Breaking news, a deadly carjacking in Woodland Hills.
Tonight, police in Lancaster, Texas have identified a possible suspect who investigators say pointed a gun at a passing car.
Hello, everybody. This is Michael Hart, and you're listening to the Situational Security Edition of Heart of America. We are tempting fate by doing a video version of this program yet again. We are in experimental mode, so we're going to ask you to bear with us as we upload to YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Periscope and Blog Talk and wherever else we might happen to be broadcasting today. For those of you that are brand new to the program, every single Friday at 8 a.m. Central Time live, and then it is archived in other places as well, we do deal with situational security, whether that has to do with keeping you safe in an active shooter situation, if your car breaks down, if you have a medical emergency. This is a subsidiary, if you will, of the Michael Hart Show and the heartofamerica.net platform, brought to you in part by Liberty One Tech. That's the number one, libertyoneTech.com, as well as the Unknown America Project. You can find out more about all the great advertisers and some that are coming soon at heartofamerica.net. So we ask you to join over there. We ask you to share the program over there every single Monday through Friday, coming to you live at 8 a.m. There's a variety of different programmings. On Wednesday, of course, we do Unknown America. One of the things we want to talk about today, and I had another interview that I pushed off to the following Friday because we had some recent developments in the last about 48 hours or so dealing with cybersecurity. We learned yesterday that there was a massive data breach from the FBI that may very well have exposed quite a few emails, and I mean millions of emails, and some of your personal information, as well as something that our head technology guy, the producer of this program, Tolly Williams, had uncovered as it relates to your individual passcodes. As we get more and more and more into technology, and you can see us experimenting with it right now in real time, and the internet universe just grows and grows and grows. I mean, one of the reasons that we took this program solely to the online platform and didn't seek out another terrestrial signal is that I personally believe that almost every single thing that we consume news-wise, data-wise, video-wise, is in fact going to actually come off the internet in the very, very near future. I don't even expect there to be a terrestrial radio tower in operation 5-6 years from now. So as technology grows and its cyber awareness grows and our cyber platform grows, cyber criminals grow, the threat grows, your money is in jeopardy, your family, your friends, and we're seeing so many things that are going on in our country today. So we're having Tolly back on with us today to talk about what's going on with the password threat and ways that we can protect ourselves. We welcome Tolly Williams into this edition of the Situational Security Broadcast on the Heart of America platform. How are you, Tolly?
Hey, Michael, how are you? I'm good. Thank you for introducing me. Although secretly we've been talking for a while now. It's just we just started the show, I guess.
We're in practice mode.
If they were tuning into Facebook and YouTube earlier, they could have seen some of our behind-the-scenes interactions. And I am watching Facebook now, so if any of the Facebook viewers would like to leave a comment, we will get them and hopefully address them on the show.
Right.
If you're on YouTube or Periscope, sorry, I'm not watching those. Or Twitch. We're on Twitch, too. That's just live, Michael. After that, we're on Spotify.
Even I can't keep up with it. I have to go to the Heart of America website to find out where the Heart of America program is.
I appreciate that. Yeah, talking about how
I love the fact that you take that as a compliment. That's great, and it was.
How much technology has infiltrated our lives. Today should be terrifying because there are over 1 billion passwords leaked, and also just kind of I thought we'd talk about sort of the various ways to protect yourself, to think about security, not just in the sense that you need a strong password and keep your account secure, but also just having kind of a situational mindset of what is going on out there.
Well, can I stop you for a moment? Because that kind of parrots into a conversation that we had with Kevin Reeve a few weeks ago of On Point Tactical, talking about being aware when you're in a mall or a parking lot and just kind of feeling the what he called the baseline vibe of just your environment and knowing when something like that was disturbed. So it sounds to me like what you're suggesting is that we do something very similar when we're on the internet. And I imagine that would be pay attention to things like pop-up ads or just, weird recommendations from unidentified websites or whatever the case may be. So we have to be situationally aware even online, and probably even more so if the truth be told.
Oh yeah. And if you're in person, you can get shot or you can get stabbed or you can get robbed, all those sorts of things. Thankfully, you're not going to get shot online. But it's close. And I say that because, do you have kids that play video games? You ever heard of them playing Fortnite online? Or playing, what's the other big, PUBG? These various video games. One of the things that you should be aware of as possible is a tactic called swatting, where juveniles, young kids, young adults, will actually use a 911 call to target their opponents in video games. So they say something like, I've got someone held at gunpoint, I have hostages, I am at this address. Well, thankfully, 911 has become kind of aware of how this could play out.
They're actually calling into the 911 system?
Oh, yeah. That's crazy. They use VoIP phones, internet-based phones, or burner phones that are not traced back to an address. And so the police only have the address stated to go off of, and people have died. I mean, SWAT officers have shown up and shot someone that had a cell phone in his hand. They weren't very disciplined with their gun use, and the guy showed up to his door with his cell phone in his hand. They shot him. Now, again, this was a guy playing a video game, and it was targeted by bullies online. So that's one of the things. So while we're not talking about, the average, you're in person and you have to deal with people face to face, sometimes our online cyber world, oftentimes, our online cyber world can bleed over into real life. And yes, we call it swatting, SWATTING, swatting. And that's unfortunately not that uncommon. If you go on YouTube and search for swatting or swatted, you'll find videos, body cam videos of SWAT officers carrying their M16s or whatever the weapon their choice is, going into the homes, and just a kid sitting there playing video games just in front of his TV, like, what is going on? What is going on? Hey guys, I think I'm getting swatted. And so, yes, you need to be situationally aware online for your own safety, and of course to protect, more commonly, to protect your identity, to protect your property from getting stolen online. I don't want to scare people, Michael. I don't. But sometimes a little bit of fear can drive awareness, and awareness can drive information and empowerment. And so if this information scares you a little bit, it's not like it's unpredictable or unpreventable. You can... Well,
the thing for me, Tolly, as and now that people can see us on video, they can see that you're a little bit younger than I am. My children are grown. My youngest child is in her lower 20s, 21. And there's a lot of young people that are bringing kids up that are 10, 11, 12 years old. My children obviously are young adults now. But what my fear is not just what's going on with the young people, but that the fact that their parents don't know what's going on with them. And all these different apps that are out there. And I had somebody suggest an app for actually this program that I'm starting to use to promote Unknown America and my speaking events and things of this nature. And it's a way for me to put information out kind of in a Twitter format. But as I'm going over to the App Store to download this, I had to go through a myriad of different apps that are out there that I know a lot of these young kids are using. And I fear that moms and dads, younger moms and dads, and especially these children's grandparents have no idea of what these kids have access to, what they're using, and even apps that can you talk about parental controls. Well, there are also child controls. There are controls out there these young people are able to utilize to keep the parents from figuring out what they're doing online.
Oh, yeah. And that Chirp is the app you're talking about, I believe.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
You know, I'm curious to see how that goes for you, because usually, Michael, you're crossing over into my territory with that one. That's like a geek type thing to be out in the bleeding edge. And, you know, I was looking at the audience.
I have been chirping the last couple of days.
You're on the bleeding edge, Michael, so that you may be one of the early chirpers. Chirping. What chirpers? I don't know.
I don't know. All I know is I'm chirping or not swatting.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's move on to the big news, and then we'll go off into other smaller ideas if you want to. The big news, the collection number one. And if you ask yourself, well, if there's a collection number one, is there a collection number two? Well, there is. But collection one is the only one we understand right now. There's actually a 2, 3, 4, and 5 coming. So this is not done. This is actually happening now. We're understanding this. The collection number one leak of passwords and email addresses and services associated with them is the biggest leak of personal private information ever in history. It's 1.16 billion unique combinations of email addresses and passwords in the data. There are over 2.6 billion rows of data. But again, because some of the data is redundant, that narrows down to 1.16 billion unique combinations of email addresses and passwords.
Now, this just occurred.
Yes, this is yesterday.
Wow.
So we're timely right now. And you may not have heard this on mainstream news, but I assure you it's coming. And the implications, the only reason it may not get a lot of play in the mainstream news where they just, you know, they'd rather have the Kardashians on.
Right.
Is because this is not the first leak, and it's kind of like, you know, once you've had the first and second, everyone gets bored of it. So it does have implications for you. It does have implications for everyone, but it's also not entirely new because, for instance, you know, Target was hacked and scammed and skimmed.
Right.
Experian, TransUnion, all these folks. So data leaks are not entirely new.
Do we know what agency or who's responsible for this? Is it, you know, Julian Assange or, you know, some kind of WikiLeaks leak, for example? And what exactly does it mean to most people? Because, you know, one of the things that always kind of amazed me, Holly, is, and I don't even remember where I read this, but the fact that the most popular password in cybersphere is password, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I've got a variety of different passwords that I use that are, you know, basically things that I can remember very easily, but that change up from time to time. But it really concerns me that people don't take that seriously enough. Now you're telling us that 1.5 billion of these things were compromised in the last day or so. And you said there's going to be a level 2, a level 3, a level 4. Well, 1 billion people, that pretty much is everybody in the world by the time this thing runs its course. So what can we do? Where are they going to be used? How might they be used? And are you telling us that everybody in the entire world is threatened by this breach?
Well, the records are, that's a good question. The records are actually just email addresses, and a lot of folks have more than one email address. So when we talk about the number of email addresses affected, that doesn't necessarily correlate to one person per email address. You know, a lot of folks have 2, 3, and some of us even use dozens of email addresses to keep things separated. So, no, I don't think it affects most people in the world. But that said, the data sources are not completely unknown. The data sources are simply previous breaches, previous hacks, other things that have already gone out there, and maybe some of the breaches and hacks that we didn't know of in advance. So basically, the more services that you use, the more you're a geek, the more that you use different logins, the more likely at least one of your passwords is in this breach. For instance, there's a website called Have I Been Pwned? And Pwned, by the way, is spelled with a P, and it goes way back. Quick history lesson here, because I know that Michael is a historian.
I'm not a Pwned historian.
Yes, the Pwned is spelled Pwned. The P comes from the word phone, and it goes back to the days of phone hacking, which was called phone phreaking, which they spell with the Phone, and then the Phreaking for phreaking. And that goes back to Captain Crunch cereal, where you could take out the whistle that came in Captain Crunch cereal, blow it into a phone, it generated a 2600 megahertz 2600 hertz period tone, and that was the control signal used by the phone system. So back in the old days, a guy who is now known as Captain Crunch, he's a hacker, would take a box of cereal of Captain Crunch, pull out the whistle that came with it, blow it into a phone system, it would generate a tone, and that tone allowed him to take control of the phone system and call the Pope, call the Vatican, call the White House. He made numerous phone calls.
That is crazy.
And that is exactly how basically the modern age of hacking began. It was with the Captain Crunch cereal, and that's why you get hacker magazines now called 2600. It all goes back to that phone system. And because the phone had such a huge played such a large role in the early days of hacking, you still see the pwnage, the ownage. When you own something, you take control of it. When you hack something, it's called owning it. You can see it with the P for phone.
Right.
It's just one of those weird things that geeks and nerds and hackers do. And so the website, that was a little rabbit hole there, but the website is haveibeenpwned, PWNED.com. And you can go to that website, type in your email address, and see if your email address is listed in any of these breaches, leaks, hacks, whatever. You can type in your password, which is not normally a good security practice, but this is a pretty trustworthy website. You can type in your password and see if your password is leaked out there. Now, me personally, if I search for a password on Have I Been Pwned, I'm not going to use that password again. I'm changing it. I'm just doing it as an educational research tool.
Right.
But if you go and search, Michael, I did your email address earlier. I won't give out your email address on the air, but your personal and somewhat private email address, I searched that you're in 3 breaches. You've been breached. And the only
From somebody.
Yes, the only account compromised in there is a video account. So it's one that you use to watch online videos. When I search for me, though, I'm in like 15 different accounts, because I'm signed up everywhere. I'm testing out every service as it comes out. When I search for my wife, who's not a geek, who really eschews technology, opposites attract, I guess, she's not in there. None of the services compromised affected her account. So the more you use technology, the more likely you're in these 1.1 billion unique records. Right. And again, this is not a new thing, being breached and your passwords leaked. You don't want to use a password that you can remember. You actually want to use a password that is impossible for you to remember, because that means it's a secure password. So you go,
then where do we store these passwords?
Exactly. The perfect question to ask. The best security practice also happens, and it's very rare that security becomes convenient. Usually security means an inconvenience to you. But in this case, the security actually is a more convenient factor. Password managers. Built into all the latest smartphones is a password manager. You can use Google Chrome on an Android phone. It has a password manager built in there. If you use an iPhone, the latest version of iOS builds out the iCloud keychain password manager into every app you use, so it can save your password everywhere. I personally recommend not using Google Chrome or the iCloud keychain. I mean, you can use them, but use them in addition to a more dedicated password manager.
The question is, if you're using one of these password apps or whatever the case may be, the manager, it's got to have a password itself. What if that password is breached? Aren't you putting all of your information in one place where it's literally in all, one basket, so to speak?
That's the perfect question to ask on that. Is that if you the place you store all your passwords has a password, well, what do? That's where we do something called two-factor authentication. And I think my video is a little bit delayed, but you should be able to see it on video now.
I do.
I'm holding up a YubiKey. This is a storage device that uses a technology called FIDO. And this FIDO technology requires it's a second factor. So to get into your account, you don't just need a password, you need something you have. Now, not everyone's going to use a YubiKey, because these are $40 online and you can spend more to get one that's more compatible with smartphones. But everyone can use a free app called Google Authenticator on their phone. And if your website doesn't support that, they may support just basic text messages. A good password manager like 1Pass or LastPass or Bitwarden. Bitwarden, by the way, is free and open source. There is a free version of LastPass as well. Those all support second-factor authentication. So second-factor authentication means something you have in addition to something you know. The password is something you know. That's one factor. The second factor is something that you have or something you are, like your biometrics. Well, biometrics is still pretty far off from being implemented widespread everywhere. So the second factor of something you have is more practical. So a YubiKey, for instance, lets you plug into your computer. That's something you have. But even more simple than that is just a simple text message. Say you have your phone or a one-time password. So if you store, your password manager is going to have a password that you can remember. It should still be a fairly complicated password. If you set a second factor authentication on that so that you get a text message every time you try to log in and it says, is this you? Then that'll be very secure. In fact, most of your accounts, like if you go to Facebook, you can turn on second factor authentication in Facebook under the security settings of the account. On Twitter, same thing. Right. Google, very important on Google because Google probably has your email if you're not using someone else like AOL or Yahoo. But even AOL and Yahoo now support second factor authentication where you can at least get a text message, if nothing else, to get into your account. If you have second factor set up on any account, there's a very good chance that you're safe. How do you create a good password? A password manager. Well, how do you create a good password for your password manager? I would recommend taking one of your favorite books that maybe you have on your shelf nearby, and then turning to your favorite chapter, and provided that you probably haven't put this online and told the entire internet what the favorite chapter of your favorite book is, take the first letter of the first 15 words and spell out what's an example we could use. So
who is John Galt?
Yes, there you go. Who is John Galt? So you could start your password with WIJ. This is actually harder than I thought it'd be. Who is John? WIJG, right? And so there you could let everyone know that you're an Ayn Randian and you are extreme libertarian and that you want to abolish all forms of social welfare. I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. What that does, though, is it creates a series of letters that is very hard for others to guess. And so provided that you don't publish who is John Galt out there on the internet, that's probably a good way to come up with a good password for your password manager. And again, two-factor authentication, making sure that your password's not the only thing keep getting you in your account. Make sure it's a password plus a code. Like this, if you want to compare this to the gun analogy right here, having a good gun that you know how to use and you're trained with, that's important for you. But just as important is your holster so that you can get it out.
Right.
So that you know so you can carry it concealed properly. The second factor is kind of like your holster. Yeah, you could tuck it in your waistband, but that's not a professional way to carry a gun. It's not the smartest way to do it. You want the good holster. You want a second factor authentication. So hopefully that's kind of a visual illustration of what we're talking about here with second factor authentication. And once you use a password manager like 1Password or LastPass, you actually can go in there. For instance, 1Password calls it their Watchtower service. You can go in there and it will tell you if your passwords are in the leak. They can tell you if your password was already in this exposed list. And if it is, you do need to change it. I mean, it's absolutely the right thing to do to change your password. All that said, yes, changing your password is a solution to the problem. So if you have one password to use everywhere, that's not best security practice, but at least go change that. I mean, if you really insist on using 1Password in all your accounts, at least go make a new one, because I guarantee you it's been out there. But you don't want to use 1Password on multiple accounts, because when one gets compromised, the other, they call this credential stuffing. And they add in known breaches to try to crack. So let's say that Yahoo's data was compromised, because it was under Marissa Mayer's leadership. Let's say your Yahoo password is the same password you used on your Google account. Well, now suddenly, although we don't know of any links to Google's passwords, your Yahoo password that you used on Google now will get the criminals into your Google account. And so that's one of the many reasons why you're not encouraged to use the same password across multiple services. It's when the weakest link becomes your biggest problem.
Even the kids need to be talked to about, whatever information they access online. And so although, moms and dads can have all this depth of security out there, if the youngsters don't understand the threat, then that, exposes the entire family. So, I think there needs to be perhaps a family meeting where we're having family discussions about online security.
Absolutely. And for instance, the things that seem innocuous can actually be very deceptive. One of the things that we're realizing, and again, whether or not you support Donald Trump's presidency, there is one question that is answered. We know the answer. Yes, Russian robots and hackers influenced slightly, and it appears to be only slight, the election through social engineering and advertising. So you might be leaking data, telling people about your personal preferences and personal private life without realizing it. The very famous example of this is, have you ever seen those polls on Facebook? Which TV show character are you? You know,
Right.
are you this character or that character? But those apps, as fun as they seem, when you install them to play the little quiz, they're actually collecting a lot of information, not just about you, but about your friends as well. So it's kind of like public health hygiene. You need to cover your mouth when you sneeze in public because you want to be protective of everyone around you. You need to be safe online and secure because you want to be protective of your friends online, because the way these platforms like Facebook work, these apps that steal your information can also steal from your friends as well without them having any say in the matter. Facebook has done some things to address this. Facebook is the most guilty in the sense that they've allowed that to happen. They've done some things to address that, but it happened on Google and it happened on Twitter as well. So those harmless little quizzes that kids play on Facebook or whatever, on Instagram, they may not be so harmless. They may be harvesting your personal preferences to. And now, look, if it's just to advertise to you, that may seem harmless. Like, well, okay, so they know that I prefer Coke over Pepsi. What's the harm in someone knowing that? We're entering into an age where the question is not about targeted advertising and how effective targeted advertising is. We're in an age of targeted advertising. Targeted advertising can actually have a subliminal effect on the entire society. So it drives you in a way that you may not even be aware of. Just like when you go to a movie theater and sit and watch the previews, well, what do? They put you on a roller coaster and they throw your hands up in the air and then you fly past a popcorn kernel. You know, they're subliminally advertising to you to make you hungry, to make you want to go get food. Advertisers are now able to use that. Russian troll bots did that in the 2016 election. Target advertising, when it says that you get a good brand preference, that they know that you prefer, Microsoft or Apple, that's great. But we're now realizing that ads can actually affect you. They can change your thinking. They can change the way you are perceived and perceive things. And that's a whole different ballpark. We're at that point in the game where you have to be aware of subliminal manipulation based on the advertisements you're seeing. And let me try and come up with an example here. You read a headline that says, Donald Trump has illicit affair with a woman from Mexico. True or not true? Doesn't matter. The thought has been put in your head that Donald Trump could possibly be having an affair with a woman from Mexico. That's the type of manipulation of your thought processes. You get enough of those, and suddenly where there's no fire, you start seeing smoke. And that's a problem. So these harmless online activities can come back to get you. And so, I would have a family discussion about what apps you install and how you approach a social network, and maybe even taking regular breaks from social networks so that you exist in the real world for a while and get off of the platform just to experience real people and remember what a real face-to-face connection feels like. Because for kids, that may actually be an issue. For some kids that live and breathe on computers, they may have their human ability to connect to people one-on-one and face-to-face is falling off the charts, and they're redeveloping new ways to connect online, but those connections are shallow. They're not as good.
Right. Well, certainly good advice, and that's certainly a place to start. So I think what we're going to do is end it right there. So the people, we don't want to give them too much to think about. Let's get everybody doing the two-step, so to speak, and then maybe have you come back in with this. Maybe we'll just start doing a cybersecurity segment that'll be entered into the program, the Michael Hart Show, the regular program, almost every single week. Maybe kind of to take people through a process of getting them conditioned to pay attention to security, but in more bite-sized chunks, if that makes any sense.
I'll try to come up with more Captain Crunch whistle stories so that we keep
Love
it
it.
interesting and not just too geeky. Let me say this. For instance, this security stuff I do with Liberty One Tech. I can help you out with your password. So if you listening to this show has given you overwhelming amounts of information, and I've not tried to, believe me, I love to help people for free, but if this turns out into something you want to spend some money on, feel free to visit me at liberty1tech.com, liberty1tech.com, or call me at 256-333-2010, 256-333-2010. I do a free security checkup when you subscribe to Talk Text Plus, which is a monthly VIP service, but also I can do a security checkup for your business as well to make sure that all of your business emails are protected. And that's one place where, espionage happens not just against the NSA and the CIA and the FBI, Michael, but also against businesses, and businesses can compete very aggressively there. So those are some things I do. And I like to tell a quick anecdotal story like I try to do. I was in an electronics store talking to one of their employees, and he had his very private pictures posted to all of his coworkers and to his family. And needless to say, he was obviously mortified by that thought, and it was all because he had a predictable password on his account where his photos were being stored and his emails were being stored. And you can morally judge the wisdom of having those kind of pictures at all, but I'm not judging in this situation here. I'm just saying if he had a better password on his phone, or if he had two-factor enabled, then that wouldn't have happened. I did, as part of just a free service to him, I helped him track down the IP addresses associated with that breach so that he can make a police report and say that, hey, we need to track down this IP address and see who did this. But you don't want that happening to you, so if you want to give me a call at liberty1tech.com, I'm not saying you have naked pictures out there, but you don't want your private information leaked. You don't want your personal secrets exposed, and mostly you don't want your retirement funds compromised. You don't want your identity stolen. Those things can really affect you and your family as well. So 256-333-2010. And like Michael said, I'm happy to come back on the show and share more about it as well.
Well, Tolly, it's certainly been a pleasure. We appreciate it. And again, thank you for everything you do. And I'm going to invite everyone to go out and follow the program on blogtalkradio.com. Check out Heart of America. Check out Liberty One Tech. Check out the Unknown America Project. And if you are enjoying what we're trying to do here at Heart of America, please consider supporting the program with your contributions over at the Patreon app that you can link through by going to heartofamerica.net. We'll be back with you live Monday morning. Thank you, Tyler, so very much, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
You too, Michael.
That's it for us, guys. You've been listening to the Situational Security broadcast on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network. We're back with you live on Monday.